Welcome back to Missing. I am Tim here today with Lance. Lance, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic today, Tim. It's a wonderful day out. I hope everybody who's listening is doing fantastic. I gotta say, full disclosure, neither you or I, even though this upcoming interview is amazing, neither one of us was on LSD at the time. I'm not on LSD right now, and I don't think you are either. How are you?
I'm doing great, and you're right, I am definitely not on LSD, but that can't be said for Dock Ellis, who on June 12, 1970, threw a no-hitter for the Pittsburgh Pirates against the San Diego Padres while under the influence of LSD. And we have the great pleasure of speaking with three amazing women from the Dock Ellis Foundation. And that's Hjordis Ellis, that's Jasmine Ellis, and Michelle McCown-Luster. And so Jasmine is Dock Ellis's daughter, Hjordis is his widow, and Michelle Luster is actually the sister of Niqui McCown. So Michelle is familiar to these airwaves, but this is the first time that we're speaking with Jasmine and Hjordis and the crew at the Dock Ellis Foundation.
And it is an extreme pleasure to speak with them, and it's really great to know that this foundation exists. We, as most people know, are part of private investigations for the missing. The Dock Ellis Foundation is very similar in that regard, but very difficult to say in just a couple of sentences what they do. So I'm just going to read a line from their website that's on dockellisfoundation.com. They are dedicated to providing support and resources to families and individuals who are affected by crime and violence. They specifically empower minority communities, and their ultimate goal is to bring home missing persons. So, incredible organization, and they're just forces of nature, all of them. And we had such a good time in this conversation. And I think even though Dock Ellis did not want to be remembered for that game where he was on LSD and pitched the no-hitter, this goes a long way in reshaping the legacy of Dock Ellis, I think.
Absolutely. At least, for me and certain baseball fans who knew the story but didn't know what else he did or what he did after baseball, and it's pretty remarkable. So make sure to check out the Dock Ellis Foundation on social media. There are links in the show notes, and check out the website, dockellisfoundation.com.
And Tim, this conversation's great, but some people would prefer it without the commercials. Where would they get this, plus all of our other episodes, and maybe even like a bonus show? Where would you find that?
Well, our listeners can find Missing Premium on Apple Podcasts, and you get all those things that you mentioned. The bonus show, you get ad-free releases, early releases. It is fantastic. And if you're not an Apple Podcasts user, you can find Missing Premium at missing.supportingcast.fm.
And we're going to take a quick break right now for a commercial, and we will return with the wonderful women of the Dock Ellis Foundation.
We are being joined now by several members of the Dock Ellis Foundation. How are you all doing today?
Wonderful. How are you doing today?
Yes. I love it when everyone answers in unison like that. We have like a crew here today. There's voices in the background. This is a conversation that we've been looking forward to for a long time. We popped it on a Friday so that we could end our week on this amazing note. I want to just let everyone know who's not watching the YouTube video, people who are listening to this, everyone's got a Dock Ellis Foundation t-shirt on except for me, but I did order it. I did order it, everybody. The shirt's amazing. It's beautiful. It's I wanted everyone to know that I did order it, so I emailed the confirmation to everyone over there at the Dock Ellis Foundation, so you know that it's coming. But that only means that we have to get together again for another conversation, so we can all have matching shirts on.
That's right.
So
and we're holding you to that.
Please do. Please hold me to it. And if anybody wants a shirt, you can go to homage.com and you can order the shirt. We'll put put the link in the show notes. But before we get to our conversation, for those unfortunate individuals who don't know who Dock Ellis is, could you fill us in on who Dock Ellis is?
So Dock Ellis, one is my mother's husband, which would mean that he's my father. He played professional baseball for the Pittsburgh Pirates, Oakland A's, Texas Rangers. He is known for the no-no on LSD. And he was truly just a great father. I don't think there's enough words to describe what type of person he was.
He was phenomenal. He really was. Doc was a phenomenal guy. And like I was sharing with Michelle, the young lady that's here with us on our team today, is that anything that you would want to know about Doc in regards to baseball, you can Google his name, and there's article after article. The unfortunate thing in regards to Doc and his life, that there are not enough articles that you can pull up to read on Doc as to who he truly was, as an individual and as a man. I told Michelle, she was like, wow, for real, Hjordie? And I was telling her the other day, I said, a lot of people don't understand. Doc spent more years of his life working in the prison system and working with youth than he ever did playing baseball. He spent almost 33 years of his life was actually committed to working with the Youth Authority in California and the prison system in several different states, matter of fact.
Wow, that is very cool. I had no idea.
Yes.
As someone who grew up playing baseball, I was very aware of who Dock Ellis was, mostly because of that no-hitter that he threw and sort of the legend that came in regards to that.
Right.
So I was so excited when I found out that there's a foundation in his name started by his family members. This is really cool for us. So thank you for joining us.
And we actually just took 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
We just did the first annual Dock Ellis Day for Youth. So the entire team, plus some of the families that we're working with who have individuals who are missing, we took them to Pittsburgh. They got to go to the Clemente Museum. They got to go to the Heinz Museums. Everybody got swag. Shout out to the Clemente Museum. But it was awesome, and they really got to experience and see the history of him playing baseball and just who he was.
That's so cool. Can you tell us who is on the team? And maybe we could, go around the Zoom here and just introduce yourselves and what it is that you do at the foundation.
So I'm Jasmine Ellis. I'm founder and CEO of the Dock Ellis Foundation.
And I am Hjordis Ellis, once wife, now widow of the infamous Dock Ellis, and I am the COO of the Dock Ellis Foundation.
And my name is Michelle McCown-Luster, and I am the outreach coordinator of the Dock Ellis Foundation.
Okay, and Michelle, your voice is familiar to our listeners because of your sister's case. Yeah,
absolutely. I spoke with you young men. I think it was maybe a few years ago or a year ago. We did a podcast. Yeah.
Yep.
And is there any information about your sister that you have that we can maybe give a little update to the listeners on?
I knew that was coming.
I'm sorry.
Well, we do have a couple new detectives on the case, so hopefully real soon we'll have some information to be able to share with everyone.
Yes, we hope the same thing as well, and we honestly, our hearts are with you. And since we spoke, your name comes up and Niqi's name comes up quite often. So any updates that happen, let us know, and we'll be there for you. But how did you find your way into this amazing organization?
Oh wow, me and Jasmine just connected. We were on Facebook, and Niqui was just on a show called Still a Mystery. And everybody was talking about it. And I happened to see Jasmine on Facebook. And me and her started talking back and forth. And she was doing this thing on Fact Check TV and asked me to be a part of it so they could get Niqi's story even further out. And I got on there and I met all the ladies. These are amazing women. When I say I cried, I laughed. I just felt so warm. I'm getting emotional now. They are beautiful women. And I worked with a lot of organizations and did a lot of things to search for my sister. But it wasn't until I met them that I felt home and I felt loved and I felt like someone was listening to me. and we just connected. And then I asked her if I could volunteer, and she said, sure, absolutely. But then it was her mom who seen something else in me, and I became a board member. So that's how I found it.
So she got stuck with us.
I'm stuck with her now.
Well, that's very cool. And I love that you all got together a couple weeks ago and you went to a baseball game, which I saw some of those pictures on social media. It was very cool. Did the Pirates win that game?
Whoa, whoa. Yep, they sure did.
Okay, good.
And before we continue, how many ball games had you been to? I mean, you must have been to so many ball games because of...
Okay, fun fact, it was my first one.
That's incredible to me.
So, and please don't laugh to the people listening, but when you said that the Pirates win, I looked like, did they? Because I was so excited, I don't remember.
But asking about how many baseball games, to be honest with you, Doc and I were literally together for right at 23 years when he passed away. I had never actually, I take that back. Twice I went to what would be a game, but it was more so an old-timers function. But when we went to Pittsburgh this past 2 weeks, that was the first actual MLB professional game I had ever attended. And the reason why is because in our household, we didn't get to talk baseball. Doc got a lot of resentment. It was real painful for him. Like I tell people all the time, and especially I share with the girls on the team, that for the world, it's exciting to hear, oh my God, here's this guy, Dock Ellis, Major League Baseball player, unbelievable. He pitched a no-hitter on LSD, but for Doc, it was a painful memory. It was just something he was not proud of, and especially once he came out of baseball, went into treatment, got clean and sober, it just wasn't something that he was proud of. And matter of fact, he would try to the best of his ability when he was in the prison system working with the youth authority. That would be one of the conversations. Well, that and Roberto Clemente, those were just the two things that he just always tried to sway away from and not even conversate about because it was so painful for him.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Now, how did the foundation get its name, and how did it have the mission that it has?
So originally, shortly after Doc passed away, we definitely knew that we wanted to start an organization. We both, well, the entire family had experience with, going to school, not just the past history. The kids did not, but we went to school to be drug and alcohol counselors. We were all in some type of human services in our backgrounds. So when he passed, we definitely knew we wanted to do an organization. Originally, the focus was going to be just reunification of families who were taken from their loved ones, maybe foster care system or whatever the case may be. But then we realized that a lot of people that were calling us, because of the work that we were doing, a lot of those individuals were reported missing. So I want to say in 2018, we changed the mission. We completely revamped the organization. And from there, the focus was minority missing persons.
And it's an incredible mission. There really should be other organizations that look to the Dock Ellis Foundation as an example of how to do these things right. And because you all are doing an amazing job. I just want to back up a little bit. How did it come to be that Dock Ellis became so involved in the prison system?
Doc became involved in the prison system because he always, his thing was the fact that he didn't want to see any young kid, no matter the race, creed, or color, religion or lack of religion. Doc didn't want to see anyone have to go through what he went through or experience what he had experienced. And like Doc would always tell the kids that fortunately for him, he was blessed to go into Major League Baseball because had he not had baseball and Mr. Brewer, who was basically the neighborhood coach for a lot of the guys that went on later on in life to go into the major leagues, he probably would have ended up himself in the prison system. for one thing or another. So that was his main reason. And then I don't think a lot of people also know that after Doc left Major League Baseball as a player, he went back and worked for the New York Yankees for many years as a substance abuse counselor, helping a lot of guys in major league sports that also were dealing with and suffering with some type of substance abuse or alcohol addiction.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, he sounds like a really amazing guy.
He was.
Our upbringing was different, so I think it was just it was the universe that brought us to what we do today. I remember, coming home from school, and there would be people who were just released from prison at our dinner table, and I'm like, oh, and oh, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. Great. Oh, you just did 20 years. Perfect. Like, that was just our life. And it was, we didn't look at that individual and judge them for their history or their past or what they had experienced. So I think it was just the universe for us to be able to do what we're doing now, because we kind of we do handle each case that way. We are not judgmental to their past, whether it be a day ago you were arrested or a week ago that you just had a drug charge. What we know is that today something's wrong. Today, today it's important that we bring you home to your family. So I think just naturally, I wish that people could have seen my dad or Doc on a different level to truly understand. I think sometimes people get so lost with the mission and, well, why do you do what you do? But it's because the question is, or the reality is, well, everybody didn't truly understand him and what he stood for, because if they did, then the mission would make perfect sense.
And what is the mission?
So the mission is basically empowering the minority community, whether missing, murdered, or marginalized. We have a strong focus on missing persons, like I said, whether missing, murdered, sex trafficking, domestic violence, any type of victimization. So what basically happens is we have a website, we have a 24-hour, not just a tip line, but a helpline. So we have individuals that are calling our hotline that are fleeing domestic violence. We are placing individuals in safe houses. We provide them with safety plans to set up a safety plan if they're in an abusive relationship. We have young girls who are calling from the strip or from wherever they're at who are, prostituting or possibly in danger of being trafficked. So it's not just missing persons. The mission entirety is victim services.
And education.
Mm-hmm.
One of our main goals is to try to go back into some of the minority communities that are being the most affected with these different scenarios, the drug abuse, the trafficking, and educate the communities, because again, as I share with the team on a consistent basis, a lot of times we hear individuals, and the first thing everyone wants to do is they want to blame law enforcement. They want to blame, this person or that person. Well, they're not doing enough to help us find our loved ones, but we're finding, but within our own communities, we're not willing to come forth either and want to play a part in trying to bring these individuals home or educate these young people so they don't find themselves in scenarios where now they are missing or, someone has them somewhere, because as you all know with sex trafficking, it's a process. It doesn't just, they take a kid and they're out there. These kids are being groomed. They're being groomed over the internet for weeks and days and months at a time. And by the time the perpetrator comes in and takes them, they're so brainwashed that to them it's like they're living in this grandiose world. You know what I'm saying? So for me, because I too am a recovering addict, so for me, I know the importance of education. Because without education in our communities, it's just like a vicious cycle. It just keeps coming back. It just keeps coming back.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I just want to open that up a little bit further by asking, what is it that you do in the organization? What does the organization do in the community to educate? Because obviously, like, providing the proper education and giving these individuals who didn't have that knowledge prior the knowledge to rewrite the narrative is super important and powerful. But do you have community events and initiatives?
The main focus for the Dock Ellis Foundation is building partnerships. So one of the most important partnerships, of course, is law enforcement, and that's to bridge the gap with the minority community and law enforcement. So many times when we get cases, we play the point of contact. So we will reach out to law enforcement, we will get the details of the case, we will communicate that information to the family, and then we will connect them together in a meeting to sit so that we are fully transparent and we understand, listen, we know there's a gap, we get it, but not all officers are coming into this going, okay, yeah, I'm not going to take your case serious because you're this color or because you have this economic hardship. So we definitely focus on a partnership with law enforcement. We actually have a really amazing partnership that the entire team is getting ready to go through for national training that we can't discuss, but we'll come back and let you know. We partner with Homeland Security, the Blue Campaign, so the entire team has to go through national training and certification. We are not, I tell people that call, we are not missing person advocates. There is a big difference in a missing person advocate and what the organization does. The individuals on our team are certified or have to go through some type of certification or a 40-hour training that is required by their state to be victim advocates. That means that our team can do victims of crime. We can apply for those applications for the individuals who need them, whether their loved one passes away and they need funeral assistance or relocation assistance. We can do that. A missing person advocate, in my opinion, I could be wrong. Please, I hope I don't say this wrong, but a missing person advocate, I see a lot of people who are saying that they're missing person advocates and they're starting Facebook groups, and then it turns that story. It can go really good or it can go really bad. You know what I mean? And we are here to provide the resources. So partnerships are extremely important. And when we talk about the outreach part, within the minority community and missing person organizations, we tend to speak about the white woman syndrome. And they believe and they say that is the reason why minorities are not being taken serious when it comes to missing persons, the lack of media, the lack of law enforcement doing their job. I tend to have a different opinion. I will not say that that's not what it is, but I believe that today we are in a time, especially in the minority community, where we're just not taking it serious. We see the missing person flyers, we click past it, we don't reshare it. It's free to reshare. It doesn't cost anything to do that. We're not keeping our eyes open. And if we do see something happen, we're not reporting it. And when a minority goes missing, they tend to go missing in our own communities. So we have to educate our communities on see something, say something, how important it is. And unfortunately, the difference in snitching and reporting, big difference. So that's really what all of our outreach is about. We will be trained on a level of the national missing and exploited. So the team will be able to go out and to also teach the importance of internet safety and things like that within the schools, which is our next plan.
Bravo. Wow. Good for you.
And I just want to throw one thing in there really, really quick that I would like to see come about in the real near future. I think if somehow we could begin to partner even more with law enforcement, where we're going in, sitting down across the conference table and going more in depth, culture-wise, because it does make a difference, because a lot of times law enforcement, when they get these reports, the first thing that wants to be said is they're a runaway. And in the African American culture, I can vouch at 63 years old and say it's just truly not a part of our makeup. We don't just pack up and disappear and walk away and don't make contact with someone in the family, a sibling, a family friend, a neighborhood friend. Somebody is going to know where we are. So usually if we come up missing and we're not back or haven't been found within so many days, then 9 times out of 10, we are somewhere and we are in harm's way. And I think that if we could just bridge that gap with the community and law enforcement, it would just take us so much further. The success rate, I believe, would be much greater than what it is today if we could just bridge that gap.
That's amazing. I've never heard anybody say that before, that part of your culture is to check in, is to not allow yourself to be unaccounted for. We've talked to hundreds of people, and they've never said anything like that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, it just really, truly is. And like I said, I am 63 years old, and God rest my mom's soul. I can remember times where I would be like just bare raw mad at my mom, and I want to, I'm a runaway, I'm going to leave. But 5-6 hours into me being out, hanging out with my friends, or even having that thought, it's like
a cousin, a friend, an associate, a grandmother, you're going to make some type of contact.
Like, I need to call my mom. I got to let my mom know where I am, because if I don't, I'm in trouble. Or my grandmother, or, oh my God, there's my brother. Need to let my brother know. Let mom know I'm just at the park. It's just not it really isn't. And I just think that if we could have that conversation with law enforcement and a lot of these different agencies and bridge that gap and just give them a better understanding on a cultural level, I think that we would all be able to mesh and work together on a more positive level. I just really, really do.
I mean, it's often that we get individuals who will call and, by the time they get to us, they have already spoken to law enforcement, did the police report, the missing persons report. And the first thing they say is X, Y, and Z is missing. They're telling me they believe they just don't want to be contacted. They are not going to do that. That is not going to happen. I can give you an example. We have a case right now with a young man who, unfortunately, he had a past. He had a few months prior been arrested on a very large drug charge. Law enforcement implied that, he's probably on the run. He just doesn't want to be found. We went to the extent of reaching out to his attorney and having the conversation with his attorney, who said, absolutely not. Definitely. We had a plan in place. He's not going to go on the run. There was no reason to go on the run. And then mom says, if my son was on the run, he'd call me. Why would he not call to tell me that hey mom, I'm on the run. Hey, PayPal me some money. Hey, here's what. People don't just vanish. So, that's a very important conversation. It's not just the minority community. The reality is people don't vanish. They just don't disappear. Not a lot of us have $1.2 million in the bank account to just disappear, change our identity, and go sit on a beach with a Mai Tai and never reach out to a loved one again, right?
No.
So something's wrong, and we just have to change the way it looks and the response time and how we're handling those cases when they come in.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program. On your site, it goes into how Black communities are affected by missing people disproportionately. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Let me use sex trafficking as an example. That number tends to be underreported, just like missing persons. So let me explain how missing persons goes underreported. Well, you're looking at a bucket. The number that you're tracking is missing person. If majority of the individuals that are calling in to report their child is missing and they're minority, and you're labeling them as a runaway, then they're not going in the bucket of missing persons. That is how the number is skewed. That is how the number is incorrect. Well, African Americans make up 13%, but of the population. Let's talk about Chicago. What is the numbers, Michelle? It's African American women make up
16%. They make up 16% of the population, but 55% of them are human trafficking.
Look at that number. That's powerful.
That's a serious.
Let's talk about the fact that we are aware on a higher level we are aware that most runaways are possibly being trafficked. But when I call you to report that my daughter is missing, you tell me that you're not going to use your resources because she's a runaway. But the statistic shows that most runaways are trafficked. So again, look at the numbers and look how when you say it, people go, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, oh, well, that's really not a big gap," or, "Well, yeah, it's just a small amount." But when you look at the numbers and the way the numbers are being handled, it's almost saying, okay, well, if you have 10 people who are missing, but technically I do not believe that they're missing. I believe that they are all runaways. Those numbers are off. So if we're still sitting at very high percentages of minorities missing, add the bucket of runaways to that. What does that number look like? What is that percentage? That's a problem. It's a huge problem. The numbers are not just high in the minority community, though. They are high for people missing, period. The only reason our focus as a nonprofit is to be with the minority community is because we live in those communities to understand that the problem is going to continue. It's going to continue to get worse if we don't educate the children, the mothers, the fathers. If we're not there to provide the resources or teach them about the resources, then our kids are going to continue to be lost time and time again. And there's not going to be a resolution. We will take any case, but the focus is the minority community because we live in those communities.
I know you mentioned that you have some open cases at the moment. I don't know if you want to talk specifically about any of those cases, but maybe you could tell us what you do for those families.
Absolutely. So we have Dontavia. Dontavia Bryan is missing out of Bossier, Louisiana. He is from Texas. He one night decided to go out with his friends, went to the casino. Friends were inside of the casino when Dontavia pulled into the parking lot. He called friends to let them know that he was actually trying to find their cars in the parking lot. He found the car, parked his car in the parking lot, which was his mother's car, and he vanished, disappeared. So his mother's name is Shariba. We have actually been working really close with Shariba. We just partnered with a young lady who is an attorney. She does not necessarily defend anybody that's on the team, but she is the individual who gets with them if they do have an attorney to make sure that the process and protocols are being followed. His case was a little different. We had to subpoena the police department and the FBI to be able to get body cam footage to prove that he was, in fact, the last person that law enforcement had contact with. There's a tussle there, but we're just asking individuals to please, if you remember anything about that night, you saw him in the parking lot. We are aware that there was a 911 call that was placed right before Dontavia went missing. The 911 call was actually for a white male in the parking lot with a gun. However, for some reason, law enforcement did not choose to look for the individual with the gun. They decided to approach Dontavia. We do believe that he may have fled, but we cannot prove if law enforcement chased him or not. There's been no contact, no bank contact, no credit card contact, PayPal contact, phone contact. He just vanished. We have Sierra Chapman, Sierra Chapman is missing out of Dayton. Michelle, do you want to tell a little bit about Sierra?
Yeah, Sierra went missing December the 27th in Dayton, Ohio. At 4:00 in the morning, she went by, I guess it was her ex-boyfriend's house, stayed there for about 10 or 15 minutes, left in her vehicle, which we think that not for sure if that's her or not, because the way that the video shows or the picture shows, you really can't really determine if that's her driving, but they said she drove away, and 10 minutes later, he drove away. And pretty much that was the last time she was seen. But they did find her vehicle in Middletown, Ohio. I believe it was it the 3rd or the 6th of January?
The 6th.
The 6th. And that's pretty much it. The FBI is involved. There's a $20,000 reward. Law enforcement with Sierra's case has been very kind of easy to work with. They
Very
keep us
easy.
informed. They keep us informed, and we kind of work together very well trying to figure out where Sierra is.
I think that's really important to highlight because we hear story after story after story about law enforcement not being very easy to work with. What is it about this particular department that is making the experience a positive one? And is there anything that any other law enforcement department can take as a note from this department?
I personally believe that one of the reasons we have been able to work on such a positive note with this law enforcement agency is because I believe that after about a week, they realized just how serious we were and the fact that we weren't just a group of people, running around, trying to find this missing individual. They understood that we were really, serious. And then we made them understand that even with the families, because we run into this a lot, we have to reiterate over and over to the families. Law enforcement is only going to be able to help you to the extent that you're willing to help them. They can't help you if you're not willing to open up and give them everything they need to know about that missing loved one. Let's not worry about if they were addicted to drugs, they need to know that. If they were possibly prostituting, they need to know that. Because when you give them this information, then it opens law enforcement up and gives them the ability to look at other avenues, as to what could have possibly happened to that individual. And thankfully, with this law enforcement agency, I've got to give them kudos because they're almost like our friends.
Well, they are.
Yeah, they're our friends.
And
they love us and we love them.
Let me also say, and again, that's out of Dayton. And let me say, Brian Johns is his name. He allowed us the opportunity to inform him of what we do, who we are, why we do it. Again, I think that there's, and I don't know if this just recently transpired, and I mean within, the last few years, but again, we have these individuals, and listen, if you're doing it for the right reason, I support it 100%. But if there are people that are out there and families need to be warned of this, let's talk about let's put the warning signs up. There are people who are claiming to be missing person advocates who are not. They don't understand the law. They don't understand the protocols and the procedures of that department. The moment we get a case, we are not the experts of all this, of every state, but if we get a new state, before we approach law enforcement, we are pulling up their handbook and protocols to understand the process. Because I can't just call you and say, hey, we have this, everybody uses this language, well, why didn't she get an Amber Alert? Do we understand the requirements? Do we understand that there is a criteria? It's not just because a child goes missing, everybody gets an Amber Alert. And let's understand why everybody doesn't get an Amber Alert. Everybody doesn't get an Amber Alert because if every child had an Amber Alert, you would turn your notifications off. Our phones would go off 24 hours a day. And then people would stop looking. It would no longer become important. And with this police department, we were able to really sit down and truly get to understand their protocol versus what we do while we're here. But there are these people and families go, hey, I have this advocate or these people are helping me. Please call the police department. And then you have hundreds of people calling one detective who has over 100 cases sitting on his desk. He becomes or she becomes so inundated, they stop answering the phone. Then you stop getting answers and a response because you have just randomly grabbed people or social media to call about your loved one. You need to reach out to individuals who have the qualifications to do the job. And with Dayton Police Department, they allowed us to teach, learn, ride with us. So here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do it. Hey, you got a resource? Great. Let's bring them in. When we did the search with Sierra, that was impactful for that community because one, Sierra was the first African American in Dayton to get a $20,000 reward. Let's start there. The FBI came in. When we did the search, Michelle, the team was right there with the search. She was able to be a part of the briefing. We were able to understand the maps. We got to see the maps, the drones. We knew where they were going to go. We did not just pop up and do the search. We planned that search. It was our partners that came out to do that search with law enforcement, but they said, if you got the resource, come along, let's do it. And that's what we're here to do. That's how we mend the broken relationships, because then we get to teach the individuals in the minority community. It's not that they don't care, but if you don't understand the process and what should be happening, then it will appear to be a disconnect. It's like an assumption. We all know what that means, right?
Yes, we do.
It's an assumption. So we're educating at the same time as building relationships and partnerships and mending relationships in communities around the world.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
And we want to thank you guys too for just allowing us to
Really,
be able
from our
to
hearts, from the bottom of our hearts,
to be able to have that space, because we have kind of had this transition, right, where we've had to go, okay, we also need to educate families and let them know that we all get up and work like everybody else. We are not sitting on a $2.5 million grant that is paying for the things that we're doing and the flyers and the jumping on planes and the searches and it takes time and it takes dedication and it takes you have to remember detail. We have 6 open cases right now. Time's ticking. And we have to make sure that every day we are making contact with, whether it be an entity, a partner, or the family. And I want families to understand that we know that you want your loved one home. And if I could promise to bring them home tomorrow, I would. I'm sure if law enforcement could bring them home tomorrow, they would. Do you really think that law enforcement wants to sit back and be beat down by the community, people, families, loved ones? They don't. If we could wave a wand and have your loved one sitting at the table with you, we definitely 100% would. But there are going to be times in a missing person case where there is called what I call an awkward silence. It doesn't mean people are not working. It means that we have to keep bringing awareness to the case, because if people are not aware or remember that your loved one's missing, people stop talking. If people stop talking, roads go cold. And now we are just picking at straws, right? So that is why we constantly are bringing awareness to the cases that we have. And, we don't always communicate the updates to cases, because we do understand that we can impede an investigation. So there are things that we are fully aware about on certain cases that we may not communicate. I also want to put this disclosure on the people. Sometimes it's not always important for the people to know everything about the person that's missing. You don't need to know about how they grew up and why they grew up that way and what type of person was the mom and what type of person was the dad. All we are asking the people to do is keep your eyes open, and if you remember something, say something. We get so lost in this theory of needing to know everything about the person, and then we become so judgmental and we start tearing families apart and tearing people apart, and then you're losing the concept of the individual that's missing. All we are asking people to do is keep your eyes open and report it if you see something, but you do not have to tear families apart in the process. And we are not the judge and the jury. We just need to bring them home. We cannot dictate or assume that we know what happened because of a person's lifestyle or the way they lived.
Yeah, that's well said too. A little while ago, you mentioned that you subpoenaed, I think you said you subpoenaed the FBI. How do you go about doing things like that? Do you work with journalists as well on this, or do you send out a lot of FOIAs? What's going on?
Oh, we send out a lot of FOIAs. Again, I believe I don't know. I'm not internal to everybody else's organization, so let me not say we're different than everybody else because I don't know what they do. But we have strategically built partnerships with individuals to guarantee that we can get certain things done. So, for example, like I said, the young lady who is now part of our team, she is an attorney. So what happens is when a case comes in, if need be, and it tends to be all of them, she will issue a FOIA. Or in this instance where we were able to issue that subpoena, we had an attorney go down to the court in that area of where the individual was missing and issue the paperwork, but she was an attorney. And it got us access to the body cam because sometimes, even in that situation, it wasn't necessarily to prove, or we did not believe that law enforcement may have done something to him, but
it was more so for the family to prove to the family that at one point or another he was in that parking lot.
Correct. And not even that, but if your loved one goes missing and I'm the last person that they were with, law enforcement's going to question me, right? So our job is that if law enforcement was the last person to have contact with him, then we're going to come question you. And we want to know why and what happened. And then what? Well, he ran and then what? Well, we didn't chase. Well, why not? Your protocol says that you're going to do X, Y, and Z. Or, we did chase. Okay, you chased and then what? Well, we lost contact. And at what time? Well, if you're not willing to give the information, then we're going to have to go get the information the correct way. And again, that's why I say it's important for us to build those partnerships because we don't want these entities to believe that we are trying to ruffle feathers. We're not. But it's very important that if the family has a question, those questions are answered, whether it be you're willingly going to give it to us or we have to go through the system to get it.
And even for a lot of it, we do also, which Jasmine is a stickler on, when we get that call, as soon as we receive that call, we immediately open a file. They are assigned a file number. They're assigned a team member. Sometimes, depending on the depth of the case, it might be two of us assigned on that case. And that's when we go in. Somebody's calling the attorney general. Somebody's calling law enforcement. Somebody's sending out press release to all of the media outlets in that specific area. And we do this so when, let's just take for instance, we get a case today, I take the call, but tomorrow they call back and Michelle gets the call. Michelle, there's no headache. Michelle goes in, she puts that person's name in, their file number pops up, the notes are there, so she knows exactly where we are in that, that case, who she's dealing with, when the case actually came in. And another reason we do it, because a lot of the people, period, not just the family members, Jasmine always teaches all of us, including myself, like at any given time, we never know when we might have to step in court ourselves to speak on behalf of this person. And what better way or professional way to show how serious we were about helping this family if we can walk in and actually have a file from day one all the way down to present. This is what we've done, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And to me, it just makes it seem... It's just so much more professional. I'm sorry, guys. You
got excited.
I did. It's just so much more professional, and it speaks volumes as to what our compassion and our dedication is. Because I think, like what Jasmine was getting ready to say a minute ago, and we have to reiterate this to a lot of our clients. Right now, 4 years, 5 years into this, 99% of everything we do, we are doing out of our own funds. And when I say our own funds, our own personal monies. So we can get a call, and we just had one the other day where one of our missing person, Sierra, matter of fact, her son. He had a bike and someone stole his bike. So what do we all do? Now we go into a meeting trying to figure out, okay, you guys, how can we all pull our money together and buy this kid a bike and replace the bike that was stolen from him, because he's already dealing with the fact that his mom is missing and may never be returned.
And let me say, it's a really big focus for us for the children who have family members or mother or father who's missing. And the reason the children are so important is because we got to get ahead of the generational curse, right? So there's going to be a lot of trauma that comes with this child having a loved one or a parent that's missing. What happens? The mother goes missing. Now, next thing you know, child is uprooted from his bedroom he's used to, or his or her bedroom he's used to, house, home. They're now somewhere else, living with somebody else. Nobody's really explaining to them what's going on. They don't understand the questions to ask, or we become so inundated with the person that's missing that we don't really sit down to heal the child. So we try to do everything that we can and build the program around. We have 2 mentorship programs. We have Brown is Beautiful, which is for young girls, and a lot of the youth that are in Brown and Beautiful, those are children whose parents reported them missing and they were runaways. So then when they come home, now it's time to do what we call wrap services. Now we need to figure out, because again, if a child left home, the child left for a reason. So what's broken at home that made child leave? Whether that be mom needs parenting classes, dad needs parenting classes, child needs, therapy. We wrap the entire family. So the children are really important for us. That's one reason why we created Dock Ellis Day for Youth. It was our first event, and people look at the pictures, and even I was looking at them like, well, it was Dock Ellis Day for Youth, and we only had one kid there, but it was our first one. But the goal is that as the years go by, that we are able to take those children on what we would call a weekend of healing. We did a healing dinner. We wanted the kids, the goal, even with baseball, our focus for going to the Pittsburgh Pirates game. And when we reached out to the Pittsburgh Pirates, because they donated those tickets, shout out to the Pirates, they gave us those tickets to take in everybody, because people don't understand, well, most black kids don't get to play baseball because it's expensive.
Nor go to a professional baseball
game. Or go to a game. So when we reached out to the Pirates, that was one reason why they were so willing to give us the tickets, because the goal is to be able to one day take the children to baseball games or etc. Because if mom or dad doesn't come home, we still got fixing to do. We've got a lot of fixing to do until they get old enough to make sure that they don't turn to the streets, that they don't pick up a gun, that they don't use drugs. And that's how you start to change the cycle of what's going on in the community. You know what I mean? So that's our focus when it comes to, then we have Hood to Heroes. Hood to Heroes is getting ready to do a event in September. Hood to Heroes is, we have some men, one of them is walking by back here trying to act like he ain't a part of the team. but Hood to Heroes has individuals a part of that program who have been in the prison system. They went into the system at young ages. They came out. They've changed their lives, and they now run Hood to Heroes. They're getting ready to do an event on gun violence and putting down gun violence. And guess what? Well, when girls and boys go missing and they end up dead, sometimes they're shot. So how do we solve gun violence? So it's a lot of moving pieces that people don't understand, that there's a lot of healing and fixing that we have to do. And we don't want to tackle all of the problems at one time, but as they pop up, then the program grows. You know what I mean? So Hood to Heroes and Brown to Beautiful is focused on the young kids so that we can end the generational curses.
Incredible mission, and here's a round of applause to you all. Literally a round of applause. There we go.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I mean,
Thank
this
you.
is really inspiring to speak with you and to hear about what you all do for the Dock Ellis Foundation. It is a wonderful organization, and we are happy to work with you and to speak with you again.
Thank you so
much.
much.
Thank you for
Great
having
day.
And
us.
please come back and see us. Don't let it be long.